Welcome in, everyone. Get ready to, well, maybe rethink what you thought you knew about the Israelites. We're diving into Dr. Waleed's The Israelites and Jacob's Hidden Secret. And whoo, this analysis, it's going to rock your world.
You know, for me, what really stood out is how Dr. Waleed, he uses the Quran's own language to, kind of turn those traditional interpretations, completely upside down.
Okay.
He makes this point, to really get who the Israelites are, we have to understand how the Quran views, what it means to even be a father.
Okay, unpack that a little bit, because I'll be honest, I always thought father was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You'd think so, but Dr. Waleed, he points out this really fascinating distinction the Quran makes.
Yep.
There's Waleed, right, which is very specifically about, a biological father. And then there's Ab, which is more of, a father figure, someone who guides you, nurtures you, shapes your beliefs, your values.
So less about who you share DNA with and more about who raises you, who teaches you?
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, that throws a whole new wrench into things.
It changes how we even approach a term like Bani Israel,
Okay.
the children of Israel.
Right.
Dr. Waleed argues this might not be as directly tied to Jacob's descendants as, maybe we've always assumed.
Wait, are you saying the Israelites, they might not all be descended from Jacob? Isn't that I thought that was biblical fact.
It's definitely the traditional understanding.
Yeah.
But Dr. Waleed, he builds this really compelling case. And one thing he points out is, the Quran mentions Israel. It mentions Jacob, often separately, as distinct entities.
Okay.
So if we were the same, why even have two terms?
Okay. Yeah, that's got my brain working overtime here.
Yeah.
So if Jacob isn't the key to understanding Israel, then what is?
Well, Dr. Waleed uses this, he uses this incredible tree metaphor from the Quran to kind of illustrate this point. He connects the Shajara Tayyiba, the good tree, strong roots, expansive branches. He connects that to lineage.
Oh, interesting. It's, like a family tree kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's suggesting that this good tree, this represents the lineage of Adam,
Okay.
all of humanity.
Gotcha.
But then he contrasts this with the Shajara Kabitha,
Okay.
the evil tree, uprooted, unstable. And while he doesn't explicitly say who this tree, symbolizes, he's drawing a contrast here.
So where do the Israelites fall into this? Which tree are they eating from, so to speak? And speaking of eating,
Yeah.
Dr. Waleed doesn't limit that word to just food, does he?
No, you're picking up on the nuances here.
Okay.
He talks about eating knowledge, consuming ideologies. He even connects it back to Adam and Eve.
Right.
But not in the way we typically hear it. He's not so focused on the forbidden fruit.
Okay.
He really digs into this concept of zawaj.
Okay, zawaj. Now, I always think of that as spouse, right?
Right.
Like husband, wife.
But Dr. Waleed explains it's got this much broader meaning in the Quran.
Okay.
He's saying it can encompass any kind of companionship,
Okay.
including mentorship, spiritual guidance. He even suggests that, Adam's companion in paradise, this might represent a different kind of knowledge, a different kind of guidance altogether.
Hold on. I need a minute to process this.
Yeah.
So we've got different trees. They represent different lineages, okay?
Right.
This expanded idea of eating, it includes knowledge, it includes beliefs.
Yeah.
And now zawaj as a source of guidance. It's a lot to unpack.
It is a lot, and it gets even more intriguing because Dr. Waleed, he points out that when, God tells the angels, hey, I'm creating Adam as a successor on Earth, they express this concern, right, about potential corruption, bloodshed.
Right, but isn't that usually taken as foreshadowing Adam and Eve's sin and all the trouble that follows?
That's the traditional take.
Right.
But Dr. Waleed suggests a totally different angle.
Okay.
He's saying this conversation, it hints at the possibility that there was a group pre-existing, already causing some chaos, and this is before Adam even shows up.
Whoa. Are you serious? Like a pre-Adamite group? Is he suggesting that they might be connected to the Israelites?
He doesn't explicitly name them, but it's a fascinating possibility that he raises. If you follow his line of reasoning and you consider his analysis of Bani Israel as this distinct category that actually predates, Bani Adam, it's something to explore.
This is mind-blowing stuff. Okay, so we've got these potential pre-Adamites. The idea that Bani Israel might be about something way more than just, being a descendant of Jacob. How does this all tie together?
Well, that's where Dr. Walid's analysis of Jacob's life gets really, really interesting.
You're killing me with the cliffhanger. But I guess we'll have to wait for part 2 to dive into that. Welcome back. Last time we left off with this huge question mark, right, hanging in the air.
Yeah.
If being one of the children of Israel isn't about, being a direct descendant of Jacob, then what is it about?
And this is where Dr. Walid's analysis, it goes from these intriguing possibilities to a radical reinterpretation of Jacob's whole story. Okay. He dives deep into the historical context, and he suggests there's been this deliberate suppression of certain truths about Jacob and the 12 tribes.
Deliberate suppression?
Yeah.
That sounds almost like conspiratorial. What truths is he talking about?
He argues that there's this, what he calls an accumulated magical heritage that has kind of clouded our understanding of the Quran. Okay. And he claims that this heritage, it's, influenced by what he calls Israelite satanic traditions, that this has led to this distorted view of Jacob's relationship to the 12 tribes.
Okay, I have to admit, I'm not familiar with those terms. Could you elaborate a little bit on what he means by, this accumulated magical heritage and Israelite satanic traditions?
Of course. It's important to note that Dr. Walid, he's critical of what he sees as these later additions, these interpretations that have been kind of layered onto the original message of the Quran.
Okay.
He uses accumulated magical heritage to describe this collection of beliefs and practices that he thinks originated outside of the Quran, but they've been mistakenly integrated into its narrative.
So it's like cultural baggage that's been
right.
mistakenly attributed to the Quran itself.
Exactly. Right. And he argues that these external influences, they've led to this misinterpretation of certain key figures, key events, okay, including the story of Jacob and his sons.
Gotcha.
And he uses the term Israelite satanic traditions to refer to beliefs and practices, again, within those external influences that he views as contradicting, the true spirit of Islam.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So how does this all tie back to Jacob and the 12 tribes?
He argues that these external influences, right? This is why we've misunderstood Jacob's relationship to the 12 tribes.
Okay.
He claims that Jacob, as a prophet, wouldn't have had biological children that strayed so far from his teachings.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah.
He's suggesting that the traditional story that we've been told about Jacob's 12 sons is wrong.
Not necessarily wrong, but incomplete.
Okay.
He says that the Quran itself actually supports a different interpretation.
Okay.
If we're willing to look beyond the surface.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about this alternative interpretation.
Remember how we discussed the difference between, Ab, the guiding father figure,
yeah, and
Walid, the biological father?
Right. He
says this distinction, this is key to understanding Jacob's story.
So you're saying that even though the 12 tribes, they may not have been his biological sons, they still saw him as their Ab.
Exactly. And this is where Dr. Walid really he challenges us to rethink everything we thought we knew.
Okay.
He suggests that Jacob, recognizing the spiritual potential of his 12 nephews, these are the sons of his brother Ishmael.
Okay.
He chose to take them under his wing.
Hold on. So the 12 tribes were actually Jacob's nephews?
Yeah.
Not his sons?
That's what Dr. Walid's proposing.
Okay.
And he points out the Quran never explicitly refers to any of the tribes calling Jacob their Walid, only ever Ab.
So he becomes a mentor, a guide,
right,
a spiritual father figure to these 12 boys, shaping their beliefs, their values, even though they don't share his DNA. That's an interesting take, but why go to such lengths? Why would he construct this elaborate mentorship, this spiritual adoption?
Because for Dr. Walid, it's not about the blood ties.
Right.
It's about something much, much bigger. He's arguing that Jacob, as a prophet, he recognized a spiritual need,
okay,
a void that needed filling. And he saw an opportunity to nurture faith, to nurture knowledge in these 12 boys, regardless of their lineage.
So in a way, he's choosing to create a spiritual family.
Yes.
Building a legacy, not through, blood, but through these shared beliefs, these shared values. I can see why you call this a radical reinterpretation.
Yeah.
But if the Quran supports this view, why hasn't anyone, pointed this out before.
Dr. وليد would argue that's because of that accumulated magical heritage we were talking about. Yeah. Those external interpretations that have clouded our understanding.
Right.
He believes that over time the true meaning of these Quranic verses about Jacob and the 12 tribes, it's been obscured.
So he's not saying that the traditional interpretations are wrong.
Yeah.
He's saying they're missing this deeper layer of meaning.
Exactly.
So this is truly fascinating stuff, but it also raises even more questions. Right. Like if Dr. Whaley's right, if these 12 boys, they weren't actually Jacob's biological sons, how does that impact like our understanding of the covenant, of their destiny as the chosen people?
And that is the question that Dr. Whaley tackles head on, and his answer might surprise you.
You're killing me with these cliffhangers.
I know.
I guess we'll have to wait for part 3 to hear what he has to say about that.
Welcome back to the deep dive, everyone. We're on the final stretch here of this incredible journey through Dr. Whaley's analysis.
Yeah.
And I have to say, my mind is still reeling from that last bombshell.
Yeah.
If Jacob didn't father the 12 tribes, what does that even mean for their destiny? What happens to this whole idea of the chosen people?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And Dr. Whaley's answer, it might surprise you.
Okay.
He suggests that by focusing so much on the biological lineage, we might have missed like the entire point of the story. Okay, I'm officially intrigued. So if it's not about bloodlines, then what is it about? Dr.
وليد says the true legacy of the, children of Israel, it's not about genetics. It's about choice.
Okay.
He believes that the Quran, it's telling this story about spiritual inheritance, about choosing the path of knowledge, the path of faith, and it doesn't matter who your ancestors were.
So it's less about, being born into this specific lineage and more about like choosing to align yourself with a certain set of beliefs, values, a way of life.
Yes, exactly. He's saying the 12 tribes, when they choose to follow Jacob's guidance, right, his zawaj, as we talked about, they inherited something so much greater than just a bloodline. They inherited this spiritual legacy, this commitment to seeking knowledge, to upholding justice.
Okay, that's a powerful idea. So the chosen people, it's not like a predetermined group. It's anyone who chooses to follow that same path, that seeking of knowledge, striving for justice, aligning themselves with those core values.
You got it. It's about like actively choosing to embody those principles, to live a life that reflects those values.
Yeah.
Your background doesn't matter. Your ancestry doesn't matter.
Wow, that really reframes this whole concept of chosenness, doesn't it?
Right.
It's not about exclusivity. It's not about superiority. It's like this personal commitment to a certain way of like being in the world.
Yeah, and it's this message that resonates so deeply with, the Quran's emphasis on free will, on personal accountability.
Right.
Dr. وليد reminds us that we have the power, right? We define our own spiritual path.
Okay.
We choose our own zawaj, and in doing that, we're choosing our own legacy.
So it's not about like inheriting a label.
Right.
It's about, actively living out these values in our lives.
Yeah.
Making choices that reflect that deeper commitment.
Exactly. Yeah. Dr. Whaley's analysis, it challenges us to move beyond these inherited beliefs, these labels, and to really engage with our own spiritual journeys.
Right.
It's this call to ask ourselves those difficult questions, to really examine our choices and to strive to live, in alignment with what we believe.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I mean, we wrestled with some very complex questions about, identity and lineage and faith. And I think we came away with this really fresh perspective on what it means to be, one of the children of Israel.
Yeah, and I think, Dr. Whalid's analysis, it's thought-provoking to say the least. And I think it should push us to engage more deeply with the Quran, to question those assumptions that we bring to the table, and to really just embrace that liberating truth that we have the power. We have the power to choose our own spiritual paths.
And on that note, I think we'll leave you to ponder these ideas further. Until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, keep diving deep.